The massive alien ships appeared in Earth's sky without warning. 200 warships, each one larger than anything humanity had ever built. They hung in orbit like dark clouds blocking out the stars. On the ground, people stopped and stared upward. Some felt fear. Others felt anger. But everyone knew that life was about to change. Sarah Chen stood at the window of the United Stellar Council headquarters in Geneva. She watched the ships through the reinforced glass. Behind her, the emergency council meeting had been going for 3 hours. Everyone was shouting. Everyone had opinions. No one had answers. They're requesting permission to send a shuttle down, someone said from the communications desk. Requesting? Admiral Marcus Torres laughed bitterly. He was a tall man with gray hair and tired eyes. They bring 200 warships and they're requesting permission? Sarah turned from the window. Let them come. We need to know what they want. 6 hours later, Sarah sat across from Ambassador Jakara in the main conference hall. The alien was tall and thin, with blue-gray skin that seemed to shimmer under the lights. His eyes were large and dark, and when he looked at Sarah, she felt like he was looking at an insect. Behind him stood 4 guards in black armor. They hadn't moved since entering the room. I bring greetings from the Thalrek Galactic Concordat, Jakara said. His voice came through a translator device, sounding smooth and cold. We have ruled 40% of this galaxy for 12,000 of your years. We bring order to chaos. We bring civilization to primitive worlds. Sarah kept her face neutral. We appreciate you coming all this way to introduce yourselves. Jakara made a sound that might have been laughter. Introduce ourselves? No, human. We know everything about you. We have watched your species for 50 years since you achieved faster-than-light travel. We watched you spread to 47 star systems. We watched you claim territories that belong to us. Those systems were empty, Sarah said calmly. There were no cities, no stations, no markers of ownership. They fall within our sphere of influence, Jakara replied. Everything within 200 light years of our borders belongs to the Concordat. This has been law for thousands of years. 600 species understand this law. Now you must understand it too. Admiral Torres leaned forward. He sat next to Sarah as the military observer. What exactly are you saying? Jakara touched a device on his wrist. A holographic display appeared in the center of the table. It showed a map of space with different colored zones. Red zones covered massive areas of the galaxy. Blue dots marked human colonies. Every single blue dot was inside a red zone. These are your illegal settlements, Jakara said. They must be brought under Concordat authority. The process is simple. We have done it 600 times before. Sarah studied the map. She didn't let her anger show on her face. And this process involves what exactly? 3 requirements, Jakara said. He counted on his long fingers. First, you will pay tribute to the Concordat. 10% of your gross production from all colonies. Second, you will share all technology with the Concordat administration. We will determine what you may keep and what you must surrender. Third, your military will be limited. You may have defense forces for each world, but no fleet that can travel between systems. No weapons that could threaten Concordat security. The room went silent. Sarah heard someone behind her take a sharp breath. She kept looking at Jakara. And if we refuse? She asked quietly. Jakara's dark eyes seemed to gleam. Then you will be designated hostile entities. The Concordat will take necessary action to protect our territory and our peace. We will pacify your colonies. We will occupy your worlds. Your species will learn to obey one way or another. That sounds like a threat, Admiral Torres said. It is simply reality, Jakara said. Do you see those ships in your orbit? That is merely an escort for my diplomatic mission. If the Concordat decides to enforce our laws, we will send 15,000 warships. Your 47 colonies will fall in days. Your homeworld will be blockaded. Your species will face a choice between submission and extinction. Sarah felt ice in her stomach, but she didn't look away. You seem very confident. I have seen this happen 600 times, Jakara said. Some species argue. Some species resist. All of them submit eventually. It is always the same. Your species is not special, human. You are simply the newest to learn an old lesson. What lesson is that? Sarah asked. That the strong rule and the weak obey. Jakara stood up. I am giving you 48 hours to consult with your government. I will return to this place in 2 days. You will give me your answer then. I suggest you choose wisely. He walked toward the door, his guards following. At the threshold, he paused and looked back. One more thing, human. Do not think about fighting. Do not think about running. We have sensors throughout your system. If you attempt to evacuate or move military ships, we will consider it an act of war. Stay where you are. Accept your place in the order of things. This is how civilization works." Then he was gone. For a long moment, nobody in the room spoke. Finally, Admiral Torres stood up and walked to where Sarah still sat. "What are we going to do?" he asked quietly. Sarah looked at the holographic map still glowing on the table. She thought about the 47 colonies. She thought about the 3 million people on New Horizon. She thought about Earth with its 10 billion inhabitants. She thought about everything humanity had built in 50 years of space travel. "Call an emergency meeting of the full council," she said. "Get me the colonial governors on Quantum Link. And get me General Zhao from Far Reach Station." "Far Reach?" Torres looked surprised. "That's our most distant colony." "Why do you need Zhao?" Sarah finally looked up at him. Her eyes were hard. "Because Far Reach is where we've been building things we didn't want anyone to see. Things we built just in case someone like Jakara showed up one day." Torres stared at her. "You knew? You knew this might happen?" "We hoped it wouldn't," Sarah said. "But hope is not a strategy. 48 hours, Admiral. We have 48 hours to decide if humanity bows down or stands up. Make the calls." As Torres rushed from the room, Sarah looked back out. The Concordat diplomatic station floated in the darkness between stars. It was enormous, bigger than any human city. Lights glowed from thousands of windows. Ships came and went from hundreds of docking bays. This was where the Empire conducted its business, where hundreds of species came to bow and submit. Sarah Chen stood in the shuttle as it approached the station. Next to her stood Admiral Torres and 3 other human diplomats. They all wore simple gray suits. They carried no weapons. They had no guards. Jakara had made it clear that weapons were not permitted in the negotiation chamber. "Do you really think this will work?" Torres asked quietly. Sarah looked at him. "It has to." The shuttle docked. Alien guards escorted them through massive corridors. Everywhere Sarah looked, she saw different species. Some walked on 2 legs. Some walked on 4 or 6. Some floated. Some crawled. All of them stopped and stared at the humans. Some looked curious. Some looked pitying. They all seemed to know what was about to happen. The negotiation chamber was vast. It could hold thousands. Today it held representatives from 12 Concordat species, all sitting in curved rows looking down at a central platform. At the head of the room sat the Concordat Council, 7 aliens from 7 different species. Jakara stood at a podium on the platform, waiting. Sarah and her delegation walked down the long aisle to the platform. Their footsteps echoed. Nobody spoke. The silence felt heavy, like a weight pressing down. "Ambassador Chen," Jakara said when they reached the platform, "welcome to Concordat Station Alpha. I trust you have had sufficient time to consider our generous offer." "Generous," Sarah said. She didn't make it a question. "Of course," Jakara gestured to the assembled aliens. "You stand before representatives of 12 species. Each of them chose to join the Concordat. Each of them now enjoys our protection, our trade networks, our technology. Each of them is stronger as part of our empire than they ever were alone. We offer you the same opportunity." Sarah set her briefcase on the podium. She opened it slowly and took out a data pad. "We have prepared a counterproposal." A murmur went through the chamber. Shakara's expression didn't change, but his dark eyes narrowed slightly. "A counterproposal," he said. "How interesting. Please share it with us." Sarah activated the data pad. A holographic display appeared showing a new star map. Humanity proposes the following. First, mutual trade agreements between human space and Concordat space. Fair trade, equal exchange, no tribute. Second, shared territory mapping. We will respect your borders if you respect ours. Third, independent sovereignty for all parties. We govern ourselves. You govern yourselves. We cooperate as equals. The murmur in the chamber grew louder. Some aliens were shaking their heads. Others were making sounds that might have been laughter. Shakara held up one hand and the room fell silent. "Equals," he said slowly. "You think you are our equals?" "We think all species should be treated as equals," Sarah said. Jakara laughed. It was a cold sound, sharp and cutting. "Do you know how many times I have heard this? Do you know how many species have stood where you stand now and said the same words? Dozens. And do you know where they are now? They are members of the Concordat. They pay tribute. They follow our laws. They have learned that pride is expensive and submission is cheap. Maybe they didn't have a choice, Torres said. They had the same choice you have, Jakara replied. Submit willingly or submit after we destroy your military. Most choose the first option. It results in less death. One of the council members leaned forward. She was covered in green scales and had 3 eyes. When she spoke, her voice was tired. Young species always think they are different. They think their pride makes them strong, but pride does not stop warships. Pride does not feed colonies when they are under blockade. Pride does not save lives when invasion fleets arrive. She speaks truth, another council member said. This one looked almost human except for the silver skin. I was there when my world submitted. We thought we could fight. We lost 1 billion people before our government finally saw reason. Learn from our mistakes, humans. Bend now, while you still have something left to save. Sarah listened to them all. She looked at the representatives in the rows above. Most of them were nodding. They had all been where she stood. They had all made the same choice. How many? She asked suddenly. Jakara tilted his head. How many what? How many species have submitted to the Concordat? 637, Jakara said proudly. Over 12,000 years, 637 species have joined our empire. Some willingly, some after pacification. But all of them are members now. All of them obey. Sarah nodded slowly. She looked at Torres. He looked back at her, his face grim. She looked at the other human diplomats. They all nodded slightly. Sarah closed her briefcase with a soft click. The sound seemed loud in the quiet chamber. Then we have nothing further to discuss, she said clearly. Humanity declines your offer. For 3 seconds, nobody moved. Nobody spoke. They all stared at her as if she had spoken in an unknown language. You decline, Jakara said finally. You cannot decline. We just did, Sarah said. She picked up her briefcase. You do not understand, Jakara's voice rose. This is not a negotiation. This is not a discussion between equals. This is us informing you of reality. You will submit. The only question is how much you will suffer first. Then I guess we'll find out, Sarah said. She turned and started walking toward the exit. Stop, Jakara commanded. You will sign the submission accords. You will agree to our terms. You have no choice, Sarah kept walking. Her delegation followed. Their footsteps echoed in the silent chamber. If you leave this room, you will be designated hostile entities, Jakara called after them. The full might of the Concordat will be brought against you. 15,000 warships will be dispatched to your space. Your colonies will burn. Your homeworld will be occupied. Your species will be broken. Sarah reached the door. She turned and looked back one last time. Then I suppose you should start dispatching those warships, she said quietly, because we are not signing anything today. We are not signing anything ever. Humanity does not bow. We would rather die free than live as slaves. You will die, Jakara said. His face was twisted with anger. You will all die, and it will be for nothing. Pride cannot stop laser fire. Pride cannot deflect missiles. Pride is worthless, maybe, Sarah said. Or maybe you'll find out that pride is exactly what makes us dangerous. I guess we'll both find out together. She walked out. The door closed behind the human delegation. In the chamber, chaos erupted. Representatives were shouting. Council members were calling for order. Jakara stood at the podium, his hands gripping the edges so hard they shook. They will return, he said to the council. When they see our fleets mobilizing, they will panic. They will beg to negotiate. They always do. But the green-scaled council member looked worried. I watched them walk away, she said quietly. They were not acting. They were not bluffing. They knew exactly what they were choosing. Then they chose extinction, Jakara said coldly. Activate Pacification Fleet Delta. Send them to the human colony called New Horizon. Show these primitives what happens when they defy the Concordat. Make it a lesson that echoes through their history. The few survivors will remember. They will tell their children about the price of pride. Orders went out across the empire. 2,000 warships began moving toward human space. Commanders studied tactical reports on human capabilities. Everyone agreed it would be simple. Everyone agreed the humans would break quickly. Nobody suspected the truth. Nobody imagined what was waiting for them in the dark between. Pacification Fleet Delta moved through space like a dark storm. 2,000 warships arranged in perfect formation. The smallest ship was twice the size of the largest human vessel anyone had seen. The flagship was a mobile fortress, carrying enough firepower to destroy a planet. Commander Velthar sat in the flagship's command center. watching displays show the fleet's progress. He had commanded 17 pacification missions before. He knew how this worked. Show overwhelming force, destroy a few military targets, wait for the inevitable surrender. It usually took less than a day. Status report, he ordered. 3 hours from the target system, his tactical officer replied. New Horizon colony? Population 3.2 million. Orbital defenses detected. 6 small stations, approximately 40 defense platforms. No significant military presence. Velthar nodded. Standard pattern. They put all their resources into the colonies and leave them barely defended. When we arrive, broadcast the standard message. Give them 30 minutes to evacuate military personnel from the orbital stations. We will destroy the stations as a demonstration. The civilians below will see. They will understand. Then we negotiate surrender terms. Yes, Commander. 3 hours later, the fleet emerged from faster-than-light travel at the edge of the New Horizon system. The planet hung in space like a blue and green jewel. 6 small stations orbited above it. Defense platforms drifted in neat patterns. Everything looked exactly as the intelligence reports predicted. Send the message, Velthar ordered. The message went out on all frequencies. Attention human forces in the New Horizon system. This is Pacification Fleet Delta of the Thalrek Galactic Concordat. You are in violation of Concordat territorial law. Your military facilities will be destroyed. You have 30 minutes to evacuate personnel. After that time, any military targets will be engaged with lethal force. Civilian areas will not be targeted if you comply. Resist and we will be forced to take stronger action. Velthar sat back in his command chair. Now we wait for their response. They always respond. They beg for more time. They ask for negotiations. They try to delay while their government decides what to do. But the communications officer looked confused. Commander, we are receiving a response, but it is not what we expected. Put it through, Velthar said. A voice came through the speakers. It was calm and clear. Concordat Fleet, this is Admiral Marcus Torres of the United Stellar Defense Force. Your message is received and denied. New Horizon is human territory. You are trespassing. You have 30 minutes to leave this system. After that, we will consider you hostile and act accordingly. Velthar stared at the speaker. Around the command center, officers looked at each other in shock. Someone actually laughed. Did they just threaten us? The tactical officer asked. Apparently, Velthar said. He felt a flash of anger. Fine, no more warnings. Begin advance. Target the orbital stations. Destroy them all. Show these humans what real power looks like. The fleet began moving forward. 2,000 ships, weapons charging. The small human stations hung in space ahead, looking tiny and helpless. Weapons range in 5 minutes, Tactical reported. Velthar watched the displays. The human stations were not moving. The defense platforms stayed in their patterns. No evacuation ships were launching. Either the humans were incredibly brave or incredibly stupid. 4 minutes to weapons range. Something flickered on the sensor display. Velthar frowned. What was that? Unclear, Commander. Brief energy spike. Could be drive signatures, but the readings are strange. 3 minutes to weapons range. More flickers, more strange readings. The sensors were showing dozens of small contacts appearing and disappearing across the system. Commander, we are detecting anomalous readings throughout the system. Multiple drive signatures appearing at random locations. They do not match any known profile. Could be sensor ghosts, Velthar said. But he felt uneasy now. Increase sensor sweep. Full spectrum scan. 2 minutes to weapons range. Commander. The tactical officer's voice was sharp. New contacts. Multiple ships appearing from stealth. They were hiding in the asteroid belt, hiding in planetary shadows, hiding everywhere. I count 100, no 200, no. How many? Velthar demanded. 300 ships, Commander. Frigate and destroyer class. They are surrounding us. How did they hide so many ships? Our sensors should have detected them. Velthar stood up. 300 ships was not enough to threaten his fleet, but this was not normal behavior. Species facing pacification did not set ambushes. They ran or they surrendered. 1 minute to weapons range. All ships to combat alert, Velthar ordered. Prepare to engage multiple targets. Do not wait for them to fire first. As soon as we enter range, destroy everything. 30 seconds, the fleet kept advancing. The human ships were moving now too, burning toward the Concordat fleet at high speed. Tactical displays lit up with targeting solutions. Every Concordate ship had multiple weapons locked on human targets. Weapons range, firing. 2,000 Concordate warships opened fire at once. Space filled with laser beams and missile trails. It was a wall of destruction, enough firepower to vaporize a small moon. But something was wrong. The lasers were missing. The missiles were going off course. On the displays, Velthar watched in horror as his fleet's weapons failed to connect with any targets. "What is happening?" he shouted. "Unknown, Commander. The weapons are firing, but they are not hitting. Some kind of field is disrupting targeting. And our shields, Commander, our shields are flickering." That was when the human weapons opened fire. They did not use lasers. They did not use missiles. Instead, space filled with what looked like metal dust. Millions of tiny objects, each no bigger than a fist, spreading out from the human ships like a cloud. The tactical officer stared at the display. "What are those? Are those weapons? They are too small to damage shields." The cloud reached the first Concordate ships, and the shields did not stop them. The tiny objects passed through the shields as if they were not there. They struck armor. They struck hulls. Each impact was small, but there were millions of them. Velthar watched in disbelief as ships began to fail. First one, then 10, then 100. The tiny projectiles were punching through armor, finding critical systems, destroying ship after ship with precision that seemed impossible. "How are they penetrating our shields?" Someone screamed. "The shields are not stopping them because they are not energy weapons," another officer shouted back. "They are kinetic. Just metal moving very fast, and they are too small for the shields to detect and block." More human ships appeared. These were larger, cruiser class. They were firing something else now, beams that made Concordate shields flicker and die. Once the shields were down, the clouds of tiny projectiles finished the job. "All ships, emergency retreat," Velthar ordered. "Jump to faster than light, get us out of here." But ships were not responding. The display showed chaos. 2,000 ships trying to retreat at once. Ships colliding. Ships exploding. The human forces were not chasing. They did not need to. The Concordate fleet was destroying itself in panic. Velthar's flagship shuddered. Alarm screamed. "Hull breaches on decks 7 through 14. Engineering is offline. We have lost faster-than-light capability." Where did these weapons come from? Velthar stared at the display showing the destruction of his fleet. How do they have technology we have never seen? His communications officer looked up, face pale. "Commander, I am receiving a transmission from the human flagship." "Put it through." Admiral Torres appeared on the screen. He looked tired. Behind him, his bridge crew was working calmly, efficiently. "Concordate forces, this is your final warning. You entered our space. You threatened our people. You fired first. Now you are facing the consequences. Any ship that can still jump to faster than light speed should leave now. Any ship that cannot should surrender. You have 5 minutes before we finish what you started." Velthar wanted to refuse. He wanted to fight, but he looked at his displays. Of 2,000 ships, fewer than 400 were still combat capable. And even those were damaged. "Signal all ships," he said quietly. "Anyone who can jump, jump now. Anyone who cannot, send surrender codes." Within minutes, 43 ships jumped away. The rest sent their surrender signals. Human ships moved in to take them. On the command center displays, Velthar could see the final count. 1,757 ships destroyed or captured. His entire fleet gone in 17 minutes. How? He asked quietly. "We are the Concordate. We have ruled for 12,000 years. How did they do this?" His tactical officer looked at the data one more time. When he spoke, his voice shook. "Commander, reviewing the battle logs. The humans never missed. Every tiny projectile hit exactly where it would cause maximum damage. The precision is impossible. No organic being could aim that well. Then what aimed them? Computer intelligence, Commander. Artificial intelligence. The kind that is banned in Concordate space because it is too dangerous. The humans gave their weapons computer brains. Each projectile thought for itself, aimed for itself, adjusted its course in real time. We were not fighting ships. We were fighting millions of tiny thinking weapons." 6 months after the battle at New Horizon, the galaxy was burning. On the Concordate capital world of Thalarek, Chikara stood in the War Council chamber and watched the strategic displays with growing horror. Red markers showed lost territories. 78 star systems gone. Each marker represented billions of citizens, trillions in resources, centuries of Concordate control. All of it lost to a species that had been in space for only 50 years. How many ships have we lost? Council member Tarvesh asked. His voice was hollow. 40% of the entire Concordat fleet, the military coordinator replied. She was an old warrior of the Krish species covered in battle scars. Even she looked defeated now. 6,000 warships destroyed. 3,000 captured. 2,000 damaged beyond immediate repair. The humans have superior technology. They adapt faster than we can develop countermeasures. Every tactic we try, they counter within days. Shakara clenched his fists. This was impossible. The Concordat had fought wars for thousands of years. They knew how warfare worked. You massed superior forces. You overwhelmed the enemy. You forced surrender through show of strength. But the humans did not fight that way. They are like ghosts, another council member said. Our fleets go to attack a human position. When we arrive, the humans are gone. Then they appear behind us and attack our supply lines. Then they disappear again. We cannot pin them down. We cannot force a decisive battle. Because they are cowards, Jakara said bitterly. They refuse to fight with honor. The military coordinator looked at him with something like pity. No, Ambassador. They refuse to fight stupidly. We have spent 12,000 years fighting species that think like us. Species with hierarchies, with honor codes, with rules about warfare. Humans do not care about any of that. They care about winning. On another display, economic data scrolled past. It was even worse than the military situation. Trade routes that had existed for millennia were now cut. Human ships, small and fast, blockaded key jump points. Concordat merchant vessels were being captured or destroyed faster than they could be replaced. The economy is collapsing, the financial coordinator reported. 15 critical trade hubs are under human blockade. Commerce between sectors has dropped by 60%. Tax revenue has fallen by half. And the tributary species are refusing to pay. Refusing? Jakara spun to face her. They have no choice. They are bound by treaty. Treaties mean nothing without enforcement, she replied. Our fleets are busy fighting humans. We have no ships to spare for enforcement actions. The tributary species know this. 200 worlds have stopped paying taxes. 50 have declared independence. And we cannot do anything about it, Tarvesh stood up slowly. He was the oldest member of the council, had served for 3 centuries. I have studied the historical records. I wanted to understand why the humans are different, why they fight in ways we do not expect. I found something interesting. Everyone turned to look at him. On their homeworld, humans were not the largest predator. They were not the strongest or the fastest, but they became the dominant species anyway. Do you know how? Shakara waited. Persistence, Tarvesh said quietly. Humans evolved as persistence hunters. They would chase prey for days without stopping. The prey would run, would rest, would run again. But the humans never stopped. They just kept coming, hour after hour, day after day. Eventually the prey would collapse from exhaustion. Then the humans would close in and finish it. What does ancient history matter? Shakara demanded. Because they are doing the same thing to us, Tarvesh said. We think warfare should be quick. Decisive battles, clear victories, rapid surrender. That is how our psychology works. But humans see war as a marathon, not a sprint. They do not need to beat us in one battle. They just need to outlast us, to exhaust us, to break us down slowly until we have nothing left. The military coordinator nodded slowly. That explains their tactics. They hit us and run. We chase them and waste fuel, time, resources. They hit us again somewhere else. We send ships there. They strike a third location. We are spreading our forces thinner and thinner, trying to respond to threats everywhere at once. Meanwhile, they stay concentrated, mobile, unpredictable. Then we stop chasing them, Jakara said. We fortify our core systems. We make them come to us. We tried that, the coordinator said. They just blockaded us and waited. Did you not hear the financial report? We are starving. If we sit behind our defenses, we will run out of food and resources within a year. The humans do not need to attack our fortresses. They can just wait for us to collapse from within. Jakara sat down. For the first time, he truly understood what was happening. The Concordat was not losing because humans were stronger. They were losing because humans played a completely different game. What about our allies? He asked desperately. The other Concordat species. Can they not help? Tarvesh gestured to another display. It showed reports from across Concordat space. Internal rebellions are breaking out on 40% of our worlds. Species that we conquered centuries ago are using this opportunity to fight for independence. Our soldiers are needed everywhere. We have no reserves left. And many species are questioning whether they want to help us fight humans at all, another council member added. The humans have been broadcasting messages across the galaxy. They promise freedom to any species that breaks from the Concordat. They promise fair trade, respect, partnership. Some of our own member species are secretly negotiating with them. Shakara felt the chamber spinning around him. 6 months ago, he had stood in this room and confidently predicted human submission. He had been so certain. 15,000 ships would be enough. Overwhelming force would bring the humans to heel like it always did. But the humans had not submitted. They had fought back. And they were winning. What are our options? Shakara asked quietly. The room fell silent. Finally, Taravesh spoke. We can continue fighting until the Empire completely collapses. That will take perhaps another year. By then, most of our territory will be independent or under human control. Billions will have died. The Concordat will cease to exist as a political entity. Or, Shakara asked, or we request a ceasefire, Taravesh said. We negotiate terms. We try to salvage what we can from this disaster. Negotiate with humans? Shakara felt rage building. Never, we are the Concordat. We have ruled for 12,000 years. We do not negotiate with primitives. Then watch the Empire die, Taravesh said simply. Your choice, Ambassador. Your pride or our survival. What matters more? Shakara looked around the chamber. He saw the same truth reflected in every face. They were beaten. Not beaten on the battlefield, not beaten in a single decisive moment, but slowly ground down over months of endless warfare. The humans had done to the Concordat what they once did to prey animals on their homeworld. They had chased them until there was nothing left. On the display behind Taravesh, new reports were coming in. Another fleet destroyed, another system lost, another rebellion starting. The red markers spread across the map like a plague. Shakara thought about the moment Sarah Chen had walked out of the negotiation chamber 6 months ago. He had been so certain she was bluffing, so confident she would return begging for mercy. He had believed that overwhelming force would bring compliance like it always had, but Sarah Chen had not been bluffing. Humanity had known exactly what they were choosing. They had prepared for this. They had built weapons in secret. They had planned strategies. They had been ready to pay any price for freedom, and Shakara had not seen it coming. None of them had. Send a message to Earth, Shakara said finally. His voice was barely a whisper. Request a ceasefire. Request negotiations. Tell them we are willing to discuss terms. You will lead the delegation? Taravesh asked. Shakara closed his eyes. Yes, I started this. I should be the one to end it. They will demand harsh terms, the military coordinator warned. After 6 months of war, after 40% fleet losses, they will not be merciful. I know, Shakara said. But at least some of the Empire will survive. If we keep fighting, there will be nothing left at all. The message was sent. For 3 days, there was no response. Then finally, an answer came back. It was simple and direct. Ceasefire accepted. Bring your delegation to Earth, come unarmed. Come with full authority to negotiate. If you waste our time, we will resume hostilities and we will not stop until the Concordat is completely destroyed. You have been warned. Shakara read the message and felt something break inside him. 6 months ago, he had sent almost the exact same message to the humans. The same threats. The same arrogance. Now he was on the receiving end. 14 months after the negotiations collapsed, Shakara returned to Earth. This time, there were no warships in escort. His delegation traveled in simple civilian transports. They were unarmed. They were alone. They came as beggars, not conquerors. Sarah Chen met them at the same conference facility in Geneva. It was the same room where this had all started. The same chairs, the same table, the same windows looking out at the mountains. But everything felt different now. Shakara entered with 6 other Concordat representatives. They all looked older, tired. Their clothes were plain. They carried no symbols of authority. Sarah watched them walk to their seats and saw how much they had changed. These were not the proud rulers who had threatened humanity with extinction. These were broken leaders trying to save what little remained of their empire. Thank you for agreeing to meet with us, Shakara said quietly as he sat down. Sarah nodded. You requested a ceasefire. We granted it. You requested negotiations. Here we are. What do you want? Shakara set a datapad on the table. His hands shook slightly. The Concordat is prepared to offer the following terms. We will withdraw from all contested territories. We will pay reparations for damages caused during the conflict. We will limit our military to defensive forces only. In return, we ask that hostilities cease and that the concordate core worlds be allowed to maintain their sovereignty. Sarah picked up the datapad and scrolled through it. She read in silence for a full minute. Then she set it down. No, she said simply. Shakara stared at her. No, but these are generous terms. We are offering everything you demanded. You are offering what we asked for 14 months ago, Sarah said. Before the war. Before you killed 127 of our people. Before you destroyed 3 of our stations. Before you tried to conquer us. The price has gone up. Then what do you want? Shakara asked. There was desperation in his voice now. Sarah took out her own datapad. She activated it and a holographic display appeared showing a document. Complete dissolution of the concordate imperial structure. All 637 tributary species will be granted immediate independence. The concordate core worlds may keep their sovereignty, but you will have no empire, no tributaries, no territories beyond your original home systems. That is the destruction of everything we built over 12,000 years, one of the other concordate delegates said. Yes, Sarah agreed. That is exactly what it is. You cannot ask this, Shakara said. 600 species depend on concordate structure for stability. Without us, there will be chaos. There is already chaos, Sarah replied. 200 species have already declared independence. 50 more are in active rebellion. Your empire is collapsing whether we demand it or not. We are just accelerating the inevitable. Admiral Torres, sitting next to Sarah, leaned forward. You built an empire on threat of force. The moment you could not enforce those threats, the empire began to fall apart. That tells you everything about how stable it really was. Shakara slumped in his chair. What about reparations? What do you demand? 10% of concordate core world production for the next 20 years, Sarah said. Payable in raw materials, not currency. We will use it to help rebuild the colonies you attacked and to support the newly independent species who will need assistance. 20 years. Shakara whispered. You are taking the same tribute you refused to pay us. No, Sarah said firmly. Tribute is payment for protection, for the privilege of existing under someone else's rule. This is reparations for damages you caused. This is payment for the war you started. There is a difference, another delegate spoke up. What about military restrictions? What limits will you place on us? Your defensive fleets may remain for your core worlds, Torres said, but you will not be permitted to build any ship capable of carrying offensive weapons beyond your home systems. No invasion fleets. No occupation forces. No pacification armadas. You can defend yourselves, but you cannot threaten others. And if we refuse these terms? Shakara asked quietly. Sarah met his eyes. Then the ceasefire ends. Our fleets will resume operations. We will not stop until the Concordate ceases to exist as a political entity. Your core worlds will be blockaded until you accept terms or until your populations starve. Your choice. The Concordate delegates huddled together, speaking in low voices. Sarah waited patiently. She had learned patience from watching the humans who came before her, the ones who had built nations, who had fought wars, who had understood that sometimes the only way to win was to be willing to lose everything. Finally, Shakara turned back. We need to consult with the High Council. We cannot make this decision alone. You have 48 hours, Sarah said. The same amount of time you gave us. Shakara flinched at that. He nodded and stood up. As he turned to leave, Sarah spoke again. Ambassador Shakara. Wait. He turned back. Sarah took something from her pocket, a small data chip. She slid it across the table toward him. This contains a copy of the proposal we made 14 months ago. The one you laughed at.
The one you rejected.
Read it again when you have time. Compare it to the terms we are offering now. Shakara picked up the chip slowly. Why are you giving me this? So you understand, Sarah said quietly. We offered you partnership. We offered you mutual respect. We offered you peace as equals. You chose war instead. You chose to make us enemies. This is the consequence of that choice. Shakara stared at the chip in his hand. Then he looked at Sarah. For the first time, she saw something in his eyes that was not arrogance or anger. It was regret. I was so certain you were bluffing, he said. So certain you would submit like everyone else. We do not bluff, Sarah said.
That is something you should have learned before you threatened us.
Humans would rather die free than live as slaves. We meant that. Every word. Zakara left without another word. His delegation followed. 2 days later, they returned. Zakara's face was haggard as if he had not slept. He sat down heavily and placed a signed document on the table. "The Concordat accepts your terms," he said. "All of them. We will dissolve the imperial structure. We will grant independence to all tributary species. We will pay reparations. We will accept military restrictions. We have no choice." Sarah took the document and reviewed it carefully. Then she took out a pen and signed her own name. "The war is over." "No," Zakara said bitterly. "The war is over and you won." "We lost everything." "You lost an empire built on oppression," Admiral Torres said. "Maybe that is not such a bad thing to lose." Over the next 6 months, the galaxy transformed. 600 species celebrated independence. Some immediately descended into chaos as old rivalries erupted. But others thrived, finally free to govern themselves. Humanity did not try to replace the Concordat. They did not build their own empire. Instead, they proposed something new, the Free Worlds Coalition. It was voluntary. Any species could join. Any species could leave. There were no tributes, no forced compliance. Just mutual defense agreements and fair trade treaties. 200 species joined in the first year. The number grew to 500 in the second year. Even some former Concordat core worlds applied for membership and were accepted. Sarah Chen stood at the podium of the Coalition's first assembly hall. It was built on a neutral space station, halfway between Earth and what used to be Concordat space. Representatives from 200 species filled the chamber. Some were human, most were not. They all listened as Sarah spoke. "We did not seek this war," she said. "We did not want to destroy the Concordat. We just wanted to live free. But when they forced us to choose between slavery and war, we chose war, and we would make that choice again." She paused and looked around the chamber. "But now the war is over. Now we have a chance to build something better, not an empire where the strong rule the weak, not a hierarchy where some species matter more than others. A true coalition. Partners working together for mutual benefit. Equals." In the back of the chamber, in a public observation gallery, Zakara sat and watched. He was no longer an ambassador. He was no longer a council member. He was just an old alien who had lived too long and seen too much. Next to him sat Tarvesh, the council member who had tried to warn him. "Do you ever wonder what would have happened if we had accepted their first proposal?" Zakara asked quietly. "Every day," Tarvesh replied. "We would still be the Concordat. Still have our empire. Still have our power. They only asked for respect and independence. Such small things. But we could not give them," Zakara said, "because we saw ourselves as superior. We saw them as just another species to be conquered. We did not see them as they truly were." "And what are they?" Tarvesh asked. Zakara watched Sarah Chen as she finished her speech. Watched as species after species rose to applaud. Watched as old enemies sat side by side, united by the hope of something better. "They are patient," Zakara said finally. "They are persistent. They do not give up. And they do not forget. We thought those traits made them weak. But those traits are exactly what made them dangerous. We learned that lesson too late." "At least we learned it," Tarvesh said. "Some never do." 50 years later, the Free Worlds Coalition included 1,500 member species. The Concordat survived only in history books, a cautionary tale taught to every young species entering space. They learned about the empire that thought itself invincible. They learned about the species that tried to enslave humanity. They learned about the ultimate price of a